Now that the conference is officially open, I'd like to introduce you to our keynote speaker for today, Greg Aleckson. So Greg is a qualified accountant and also former CFO of Lorna Jane. More recently, Greg's focus has been helping small to medium enterprises around Australia to thrive through simplification. Greg is currently completing his first book, Got a Business, Get a Life, which I think is more than relevant for the rest of the weekend. So can we please welcome Greg Aleckson to the stage.
Right. Morning, everyone. We are tight for time, and as you know, Michael likes to make sure... Sorry, we're tight for time. And as you know, Michael likes to make sure that there is no risk of us running over time, so I won't bore you with any more of my background, and we'll jump straight into it. So the reason I'm here today is to talk to you a little bit about strategy. I'm probably going to walk across in front of this from time to time. Don't be alarmed, I will get out of your way so you can see the PowerPoint as well. Before I get into strategy though, I want to just take you all a step back, because I know there's a lot of RMCPs here and some staff who work with RMCPs, but there are also a number of new people. So I'd like to take you back, especially for RMCPs, or for some of you, this might be the life that you're living now. I'd like to take you on a bit of a journey. And I'd like you to tell me if any of these things relate to you. You can just have a chuckle, or you can put your hand up, or you can yell out, or you can laugh loudly if you think any of these things relate to you. A day in the life of a private practice physiotherapist. I'm assuming everybody here is a private practice physiotherapist? Yep. Close? Great. So tell me, does that relate to anybody, either in the past or right now? Yeah, some nodding heads, yeah. No, Yusuf, never. Never ever in the past. What about this? Has anybody experienced that in their lives as a physiotherapist? Mm-hmm. Don't worry, you're not alone. It's not about physiotherapists only. What about this? Sorry, time's up, out. Next. A waiting room full of people, waiting for their turn, for their 15 minutes of fame. Oh, sorry, wrong slide. So is everybody familiar with these things? Either in their past or today? A lot of equipment there, and I haven't got it all, have I? Right. Yeah. Fair call. For many of us, this is today. For a number of us, especially RMCPs, we might see that this is still the case as we're implementing the changes with RM. But that's certainly been the case for most of us during our lives as a physiotherapist. And have you ever felt like that? Boxed in? No escape? This is the life? It's interesting, Michael was talking about that actually, his own experience. So Michael, very much feeling boxed in. So is it fair to say, Houston, we have a problem? What is that problem? The problem is that mostly the way that we work as physiotherapists today is not the way that we would have ourselves work. It doesn't work for us as physiotherapists, it doesn't give us job satisfaction, or at least the level of job satisfaction we would like. But more importantly, it also doesn't give our clients the results that they seek when they come to us. But the best value that a client can get when they come to a physiotherapist, and I've heard this from a number of physiotherapists, sorry, I'll move away from that speaker, is to receive hands-on assessment and diagnosis, and then hands-on treatment. Much more likely to get a good outcome for the client. And interestingly enough, if we get a good outcome for our client, our own level of satisfaction increases, because that's why we're in this industry, right? Who's not in this industry for that reason? I didn't think so. It's pretty well known that physiotherapy is a caring industry, very much similar to, let's say, nursing, but a different professional level to nursing. But definitely pretty much most, if not all, people who tend to get into physiotherapy have a caring background, and they want to provide a really good service to their clients to help improve their health and their life. And certainly, as Michael said, that was the case for Michael. So, problem is we're doing the opposite by virtue of those things that we all had a bit of a chuckle about. But those are really just symptoms, aren't they? If anybody should know about symptoms, I would hope physiotherapists would know the difference between a symptom and an underlying cause. Those are really just the outcomes of a much deeper, much more challenging underlying cause. Does anybody have a clue what that underlying cause might be? If you don't know the cause, are you likely to find a treatment that's going to work? No. So we tend to treat the symptoms, but perhaps we should be treating the causes. That's a big statement. And it's probably a controversial statement. I'm okay with it. And if anybody wants to talk with me about that, I'm happy to have a discussion about it. We are on a tight time frame, but if anybody's got a particular opinion that goes against that, but if you're prepared to work with me and see where I go with it, if you have a strong opinion about it, I'm happy for you to raise that opinion. Anybody got a strong opinion about that or against that? That's a challenge for our industry?
It's a challenge for all medical industries because we can't dictate what we do for the best course of treatment for our clients.
Yeah.
It's dictated by third parties.
Absolutely. All right. So I would agree with you. And we could talk this strategy to pretty much any health practitioner. I agree absolutely. How does it apply to physiotherapy? Now I'm going to bore you with some slides here for a little bit, but there's a reason for it, because this is the APA's own document that they sent to the ACCC looking into healthcare reform. And if you have a quick read of some of these statements, that first one's a pretty big one. Interestingly, as you can see, what the APA didn't say from all of that, they did elaborate a little bit throughout the report. And the crux of it is that there are 5 major health insurers, and they control more than 80% of the private health insurance industry. And because they have so much power, they do have a very big impact on everything that we do in physiotherapy. Whether we are a preferred provider or whether we aren't a preferred provider. A little bit more, to give you a little bit more of a background as to what the APA itself is saying about this challenge. And you can see similarities between some of this and the slides that we looked at earlier, the pictures, some of which were amusing, but most of which we were nodding our heads to. A little bit more. We have to abide by treatment descriptors even. And interestingly enough, physiotherapy has a lot fewer treatment descriptors than a lot of the other allied health professions, which makes it a much harder job for us to satisfy the requirements of the private health insurers and to provide a really good service to our clients. You know, I could go on and on. Sorry, how'd that get in there? Three's a crowd, right? Well, I mean, it depends. There's somebody here looking at that going, oh, well. I think most of us are probably a little bit uncomfortable about that picture. Three's a crowd, right? Who are the three in the picture when it comes to physiotherapy? Any ideas?
Physio, the client, and the health insurer.
Absolutely. Next question, and it's an interesting question for you. We're natural carers, right? We've established that. Our clients want a particular service from us to get rid of their pain, definitely. But certainly we look at the underlying cause and we get rid of the underlying cause of their pain. That's what we specialise in. It's a marriage made in heaven, really. We are aligned in our goals because if I can provide a great service to my client, relieve that pain by treating the underlying condition and ensuring that they are actually fixed, not just relieved of a symptom, then my self-satisfaction increases. I enjoy coming to work. I love what I do. And strangely enough, the client loves what I do too, if I do that. But interestingly, enter a third party. Is their goal aligned to mine as a physio? Is their goal aligned to my clients as someone in pain or suffering? Probably not. Now, here's an interesting question for you all. Which one's the physio? And which one's the client? And which one is the insurer? Good question. Oh, hang on. Any clear idea on who the physio, client and insurer are in this picture? Pardon? The private health fund is in the middle. Cheeky bugger. Sucking up to both. But what do they want? Ladies in the room, what do they want? They want him to get out of the spa. Because we're just enjoying time together. Our goals are aligned. And yours aren't, buddy. Get out of the spa. Now, there's a message in that. And you can probably guess what that message is. And it is a bit of a challenge. Because third-party payers' priorities, and I'm going to include third-party payers because work cover is another example compared with private health insurers. They also are a third-party payer and they also have different goals to us and our clients. Their goals aren't aligned to ours. But certainly private health insurers, what's their number one goal? Viability. Their number two goal? Profitability, so the shareholders keep off our back. Right? Or the members, in the case of member equity private health insurance funds. So they've got competitive forces. Membership fees are continually increasing. And as that continues to happen, people are dropping out of the system. Now, the government intervenes from time to time and forces people back into the system, but over time, it's not sustainable. We all know that as health practitioners. Is government spending on health sustainable? It's not, is it? They keep talking about it. So this is coming to an end. This is reducing all the time, which means that the private health insurers have only one place to go. Reduce payments. Reduce costs. They have a profit motive. That's their goal. Doesn't sound very much like the physio's goal, treating the patient. Doesn't sound very much like the patient's goal. It's misaligned. Similarly for work cover. Now, work cover doesn't have a profit motive, I would agree, but they still have a viability motive. Premiums are paid to work cover by businesses, and businesses are getting pushed and prodded and pulled from left, right and centre every day, and a number of you in this room are business owners, so you would know yourselves. So there is downward pressure. There is pressure on governments to force work cover premiums to either be maintained or reduce. There's continual pressure. And sustainability is definitely an issue for them. So again, their goals are not necessarily aligned. Yes, there is an underlying goal that work cover has, which is to get people back to work, which you would think therefore means they want them cured. However, even with work cover, there are step downs, right? With work cover, there are limited numbers of treatments with work cover. All of these things fly in the face of what you would think is their goal. Their goal isn't clear. Their goal is really mixed up by the fact that they are funded by other people. So we have a serious misalignment. And that is a major challenge for our industry. So, finally now, let's get to strategy. What's the strategy to deal with this misalignment? What's the strategy to deal with third-party payers being in the mix and changing the way that we operate? Restricting our ability to actually give to our clients what we would like to give to our clients. Restricting our times. So, for instance, a client comes in for an initial consultation. What's the first thing you should do? What's the first thing you do when someone comes in for an initial consultation? You know the answer. You're just shy.
Take history.
Yep. Because we want to assess. In the first instance, we want to find out what's wrong. And then secondly, we want to diagnose. And then thirdly, we want to treat. But how soon do we have to treat? Under a third-party insurance model. Very, very quickly. So we tend to take shortcuts. Maybe we don't. Maybe we give the client more attention and time, but at our own peril. So, there are simply two ways to react to any problem, and this is a major problem for the industry. One is to have a reactive strategy, and the second is to have a proactive strategy. Now, you would all be familiar with a reactive strategy because it's what dominates the industry. It's what dominates every industry. It's the way that we're taught to deal with problems. Unfortunately, what it means is we very much get caught up into accepting that this is the way things are. A reactive strategy is accepting this is the way things are. It's almost like a resignation that third-party payers are here and they're not going anywhere. So we have to accept that and we have to find a way to work in that system. Is that a fair call? Okay. So, it basically maintains the status quo, doesn't it? And the status quo doesn't satisfy us, does it? So, is a reactive strategy going to work for us? Because if you're trying to work with the status quo, the best that you can do is compromise. And if I take you back to those pictures earlier, or the APA information, isn't that what we're already doing as an industry? Compromising? We're compromising how long we treat someone. We're compromising what we do during that treatment. Do we fully assess them? Do we fully diagnose them? Do we rush the treatment just to fit inside the guidelines of work cover or the private insurers? This is a reactive strategy and it's happening right now. In most businesses in physiotherapy, it's happening in the industry in physiotherapy. Even the APA, as an organisation that represents the group of physiotherapists in Australia, has to be reactive because they know that the private health insurers aren't going anywhere. This is a model that's staying in this country. But the problem is we're dealing with symptoms again. In reacting to the status quo, we're dealing with the symptoms. We're not actually treating the underlying cause. Because do you remember what the underlying cause is? What's the underlying cause here? Do you remember the guy in the spa? That's the underlying cause. He's the underlying cause. He's in between us and our client. But we're not dealing with him. We're dealing with the symptoms that he's created for us under a reactive model. So surely something's got to change. Because with a reactive model, something that can tend to happen is when we react to a symptom, one, we're unlikely to solve the problem. And two, the way we react often results in creating further problems for ourselves. Just like the good old US of A. Whenever they react to a crisis around the world, it's always they arm the other guy, who in 5 years' time is now the guy, so they have to arm someone else to fight that guy. This is actually what happens under a reactive strategy in every business that employs a reactive strategy, not just physiotherapists. So it is happening right now. So is it time for a change? Go on, be sheepish, or someone yell out. Is it time for a change? Do you really believe it's time for a change? The hell is that? Has anybody seen this before? It's a square watermelon. Is it real? Yeah. It's real. And the interesting thing about a square watermelon is that it's a topic of laughter. When we first see that, and you're like, what the? Which is what we tend to do when we look at something different, something that's a little bit to the left or to the right. The square watermelon, though, is laughing right back at us. If you know the story of the square watermelon, a farmer in Japan in 2001 released it to the market after 10 years of working to perfect it. They're grown in glass boxes. The reason they're grown in glass boxes, and the reason he thought this was a good idea, even though we all have a bit of a chuckle, is because they're bloody painful, aren't they, watermelons? When you buy a watermelon and you put it in your fridge, if you can get it in your fridge, it's like, and then when you go to put something else in the fridge, it's like, I can't put it on top of the watermelon because it just rolls off. Can't put it around the watermelon because it's a funny shape. And so this guy said, no, in order to get people to buy more watermelons, what we need to do is we need to make them fit into a refrigerator. Now, the reason I say he's laughing at us, when initially, our initial response is to laugh at him and say, crazy. Like, could you imagine back in the 90s when this guy said, I'm going to make a square watermelon? Yeah, loony, ship him off. So not a lot of people knew about it back then, naturally. But strangely enough, just recently, these watermelons are selling for somewhere around about $800 to the Russians, to the wealthy Russians, that is, you know, the one percenters. Even back in 2001 when this was released in Japan, it was selling for close to $100 US. Have you ever paid $100 for a watermelon? He's laughing at us for laughing at him. He had it right. He didn't accept the way that things were, and he decided he needed to change them. So, proactive strategy, not reactive strategy. If Mr. Square Watermelon had taken a reactive strategy, he would still be producing round, odd-shaped watermelons that don't fit in the fridge. and he gets, I don't know, a couple of bucks for him. Good on him. Like everybody else. But he decided to take a proactive strategy. He did something about it. He recognised the need for change, and he changed, even in his weird little industry, growing watermelons. Unlike the reactive strategy, proactive strategy is a challenge because reactive strategy stems from our desire to be associated with each other. And naturally, as physiotherapists, we're carers, right? And because we're carers, we're also people. And we like to be associated with each other as a group. It's a natural inclination. So it's very easy for us to maintain the status quo, to not upset the people around us, to be liked by everybody, to not even upset our customers by saying, you know what, I don't charge $70 for a half-hour consultation anymore, I charge $150. We don't like to do that. It seems like it's not our natural state. So this is a bit of a challenge to us. But interestingly, it stems from our desire for freedom and self-determination. And we all have that as well, right? Do we have that? Do you guys want to be free to choose the way to do the things in your industry the way you see fit? Yep. So why can't that be an overrider for you to help you make the change from reactive strategy to proactive strategy? Now, I know I'm talking to the converted here in many instances, and many of you are already doing this. But a number of you are also interested to know a little bit more about how you can have a better practice, a better life. It requires significant change from you. Interestingly, again, this deals with the underlying cause, not the symptom. So again, it should be natural for physiotherapists. It should be natural for you. It should be natural for all health practitioners because it takes a scientific approach. The model we're working under at the moment is not very scientific. Not because of us, but because of that guy in the middle in the spa who has just different aims to us. He's not bad. He just has different goals to us. They're not aligned to ours. They're not aligned to our clients. Has anybody got a question about this proactive strategy? Is anybody thinking, no, I don't see it, I don't get it? Everybody on board? Would everybody agree that traditionally we have been reactive, like pretty much every industry in the world? But that perhaps it's time for a change. Perhaps it's time to become proactive. But the question is, where do you start? Now, interestingly enough, there's probably a consistent theme developing here today, even just from what Michael started talking about and what I'm talking about. But this proactive strategy is actually not about physiotherapy. It's not about RM. It is actually about being in business. And whether or not we're a business owner or an employee, we are in the business of physiotherapy. And it is about making a change, but it's a scary change. And I know that even as RMCPs, many of us have a challenge with making the changes necessary because they are difficult. And here's an example of how they're difficult. Proactive in practice means getting back to what we're here for. It means not compromising on the level and quality of service we provide our clients, doesn't it? But under the reactive model, we compromise a little. We have to. But not compromising. Look at all the not compromisings. That's hard to do, isn't it? But if we want to make a change, and we want to make a big change, it's not compromise there, but compromise there. Unless we're satisfied with compromising here on fair compensation for ourselves, but we're not satisfied with not compromising on other things. You can pick and choose, sure, but the results you get are going to be a direct reflection of what you choose to not compromise on anymore. So, does that sound like it's a pretty difficult challenge? Not compromising in a system that forces compromise? God, what do you do? That's where you can start, but what do you actually do about it? I made it sound really easy, didn't I? But at the end of the day, you're probably thinking, that's what I'm telling you to do. Guys, if you've ever walked in high heels, I've given it a try. I won't tell you the story, but I've given it a try. It's hard enough walking in high heels, let alone walking in high heels on a tightrope. Does that sound familiar to what I'm saying we need to do to change? Is it really that hard? Yes, no? Is it that hard to change and not compromise on all those things? Like walking a tightrope. Especially when the guy in the spa's leaning over our shoulder, right? Breathing into our ear. And the pressure's on. But actually, isn't that a bit harder? Would you prefer this or the previous? Do you know whose hand that is? The guy in the spa. And he's whispering in your ear. And you're pushing him away. And he's holding onto the string. That's a much more compromising position, and it's a much more risky position. Because we all know, we can see the writing on the wall, where the reactive model has gotten us and is getting us. And it's only getting worse, gradually getting worse and worse and worse. There are incremental improvements from time to time, but then they're taken away, on the other hand, through a different way of doing things. Reducing the amount of time you can spend with a client is actually reducing your income, as well as reducing the outcome for the client. So, proactively different in practice. Do you want those things? If you want those things, I'm certainly not asking you to go and reinvent the wheel, because I don't think you can get it better than the round one that rolls. There's not much point trying to reinvent the wheel. You can give it a go if that's what you want to do. But wouldn't it be far easier if you had a way to simply follow the wheel that's already been invented? And the wheel has already been invented. And it's the reason we're here today. Now, for someone new to RM, hopefully, as you work through the weekend, you'll get an appreciation of just how much change is required. But that actually, most of those changes aren't that difficult, as long as you understand what the choices are that you have. If you're an existing RMCP, then hopefully you can appreciate that RM has been through all of the frustrations already for you. RM started there and started to round off the edges. And RM now has very round edges. It's a nice rolling wheel. It's dealt with all of those problems and challenges. And it has seen off the guy in the spa. And oddly enough, it's been incredibly successful while it's been doing that. Doesn't sound right, does it? Because it seems like a big challenge. But actually, RM is more successful for having dealt with the guy in the spa. And yet that's probably the most scary thought for anybody in a traditional physio practice. Because that guy is dominant and he is breathing in our ear And yes, we do need him to pay us something. So the thought of seeing that guy off, there's no two ways about it, it's scary. But it's been done before. It's actually not that hard. And it works. Look at Baruna. Baruna, the odd thing is when you talk to the guys in Baruna about how well Baruna does, I think they tend to underplay it. Because Baruna is the first RM practice. They don't realise the success they have, but when I look at Baruna, coming from an outsider's perspective, in fact, the level of success is extraordinary because they actually work a lot less. They actually, as individuals, earn a lot more. Their clients refer them lots of other clients. So it's not so scary. Their clients often pay full fee, not subsidised, or with a very little subsidisation, because they're not a preferred provider. It's really not that scary. The model's there. But it does require you to not just pick up the parts that you like and that are easy, because when you do that, you will return and say, you know what? I knew it wasn't going to work because you only did the 10% that was easy for you. That 10%'s not enough. The model works. So hopefully for new RMs and for existing RMs and RMCPs who've had challenges adopting everything in the model, if I've only achieved one thing today, I would hope that it's to get you to think a little bit more about how critical it is to simply follow the model, to simply take the steps, to simply do the things that RM has already done and proven successful. And hopefully, one day, we can be there. Because that's why we're here in the first place. The guy in the middle, what relevance does he have to fixing someone? Not a great deal. So that's our ultimate goal. And you can go and invent your own way of doing it proactively. It is an option. Why bother? It's tried and tested, it's easy. All you have to do is decide and jump. Thanks, guys.